A Simplex converted to a Great Western Railway Prairie Tank, and this episode is called Sorting Out the Wheel Sets. There are 3 wheel sets to sort out, so I'm going to be working on 6 ends of wheels, which is not good fun really. Very boring, very tedious and quite dirty. I can only imagine what it would be like if this was a full-size steam locomotive. And I salute the thousands of people worldwide who work on full-size locomotives. I really wouldn't want to do that. This part of the job is quite tricky. I'm cleaning around the crank pin with the miniature angle grinder with the flapper wheel fitted without touching it. And then I turn the wheel set over and it's exactly the same one more time. Remove the protruding end of the axle until it looks like this. Then I can apply a generous amount of JB Weld, which will fill in the unsightly holes where the grub screws are. JB Weld is a special 2-pack epoxy resin, and it has steel particles in the resin. Once I've thoroughly mixed an equal quantity of the resin and hardener, I can apply it to the wheel as shown here. It's quite important not to block up the hole in the centre. In this one I accidentally did. Look, as you can see, I'm blocking up the hole in the centre. Why did I do this? Well, for the simple reason this is a tutorial and I did it to remind everyone not to fill in the centre hole. On the bench I had a few copper rivets left over from riveting the smoke box. And I'm using one of these to poke into the hole in the centre of the axle so I know where it is. Once I'd marked the position of the centre hole, I clamped the wheel lightly in my vise and left it there for the JB Weld to set. Up to now I've been working on the wheel sets on my painting jig, which is a very useful thing to hold wheel sets while you work on them or paint them. I put the centre wheel set in the vise to free off the painting jig, which is now supporting the front set of wheels. And once again it's more of the same. First of all, the flapper wheel fitted into the small angle grinder until the protruding part of the axle is fully level with the main crank web. It's a pity that someone drilled holes for grub screws in this locomotive's wheels, and the only realistic way without going to an awful lot of trouble to make it look better is just to fill in the holes with the JB Weld as shown. Once everything is rubbed down to a very smooth finish and painted, I think it will look okay. All that remains to be done now is to apply the JB Weld to the other side of the wheel. This is 24-hour JB Weld, so 24 hours is the length of time that it would normally take for it to harden, but it was very cold in the workshop, so it actually took a bit longer than 24 hours. And here I am about 2 days later in the Christmas holiday, and it's time to rub down the JB Weld. I started off using the flapper wheel fitted to the Proxxon motor tool, but this took too long. After using the flapper wheel, I resorted to some very coarse sandpaper. Then I centre drilled the axle as shown. In this clip I'm working on the centre axle set, and I'm using the Proxxon angle grinder to clean off the JB Weld. This is certainly quicker, and this was followed by a good rub with a piece of 100 grit emery cloth. The main reason for using the coarse emery cloth is not just to flatten off the JB Weld. I'm using it to scratch the front of the crank web, which will give a really good key for the paint. Here I'm also doing the balance weight. Followed by centre drilling the axle. That's one side done, now it's time for the other side. This one seemed to clog up the wheel on the angle grinder. Maybe I'd used too much JB Weld, but in the end it started to move it. Just as before, this was followed by some 100 grit emery cloth. And yes, you've guessed it, followed by drilling the centre hole in the axle. That is the filling of the wheel sets completed. The final job was to use the Proxxon angle grinder to remove the paint from one of the balance weights. This unclogged the flapper wheel, so I thought I would do the other side and unclog it a bit further. I was really pleased when this part of the job was over. I didn't enjoy it at all. And now, sit back and relax, because it's painting time. This is a tin of aerosol paint, also known as a rattle can. I'm going to spray it out of the rattle can into the cap and use a paintbrush to apply it. And for the Etching Primer painting sequence that's coming up, I composed, performed and recorded some music for it. So that's it for the voiceover. I'd just like to say, stay healthy in 2021. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.